If someone asked you to describe the rarest human alive, you'd probably start with physical traits. Red hair. Maybe. Only about 1 to 2% of the global population. Blue eyes. Rarer than most people think outside of specific Northern European populations. A B-negative blood type, carried by less than 1% of humans worldwide. Left-handedness if you want to include behavioral traits. Some combination of all of these, stacked together, producing a person who is statistically improbable by any reasonable measure. That's the obvious answer. It's also almost entirely missing the point. Because when geneticists and statisticians actually tried to calculate human rarity, not as a party trick but as a serious question about biological probability, they found something that broke the intuitive framework completely. Every single human being alive right now is, by any rigorous statistical measure, so improbable that the concept of rarity stops meaning anything useful when applied to individuals. But let's build toward that slowly, because the path there is more interesting than the destination. Start with red hair. The MC1R gene variant responsible for red hair is recessive, meaning you need 2 copies, one from each parent, for the trait to express. The global frequency is somewhere between 1 and 2%, rare, genuinely. If you're looking for someone with naturally red hair, roughly 98 out of every 100 people you meet won't have it. Stack blue eyes on top of that. Blue eye color involves a mutation in a gene called OCA2, and the variant is estimated to have originated from a single common ancestor somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 years ago. Everyone with blue eyes is technically a descendant of one person. The global frequency today sits around 8 to 10%. The probability of having both red hair and blue eyes, assuming independence, is somewhere around 0.17%, fewer than 2 people in 1,000. Add AB-negative blood. Now you're below 0.01%. Add left-handedness. Add a handful of other independently rare traits. The numbers get very small very quickly. But here's where the statistical framework starts to quietly collapse. The traits we're stacking are largely superficial. Visible, interesting, genuinely rare in isolation, but they're also the traits that humans have historically noticed and categorized because they're observable. They represent a tiny fraction of the actual biological variation between individuals. Your genome contains somewhere between 4 and 5 million positions where your specific DNA sequence differs from the human reference genome. The particular combination of variants you carry, not just the visible ones, but the ones affecting your immune system, your metabolism, your neurological architecture, your susceptibility to specific diseases, the precise way your cells repair DNA damage. That combination is yours alone. It has never existed before in the history of the species and will never exist again. Geneticist Svante Pääbo, who won the Nobel Prize in 2022 for his work on ancient human DNA, spent decades sequencing the genomes of ancient humans and our closest evolutionary relatives. One of the things that emerges from that work is a picture of just how genetically diverse modern humans are, and simultaneously how genetically similar. We are, compared to other great apes, remarkably homogeneous at the population level, the result of a relatively recent common ancestry and at least one severe population bottleneck, probably around 70,000 years ago, when the human population may have dropped to as few as a few thousand individuals. And yet within that homogeneity, individual variation is essentially infinite in combinatorial terms. The number of possible human genomes, given the positions and variants available, exceeds the number of atoms in the observable universe by orders of magnitude. So when you ask what the rarest human possible looks like, the answer is every human, including the most statistically common one. A person with brown eyes, brown hair, O-positive blood type, and right-handedness. The most common combination of the traits people usually use to define typicality is carrying a specific genomic configuration that is, in the only sense that actually matters, completely unique. Rarity applied to individuals is not a spectrum with common people at one end and rare people at the other. It's a property that every individual possesses absolutely. This sounds like a feel-good conclusion, and I want to be careful here because it isn't one, or at least not only one. The reason this matters beyond the philosophical is what it implies about identity, about biological determinism, about the instinct to categorize humans by visible traits and assign significance to those categories. The traits we've historically used to divide people, skin color, eye shape, physical features that vary across geographic populations, are among the least genomically significant differences between individuals. Two people who look similar can be more genomically distant than two people who look completely different. The visible surface is a terrible map of the biological interior. What makes any specific human rare isn't the handful of traits observable at a glance. It's the 4 million genomic positions underneath those traits, the specific developmental environment that shaped how those genes expressed, the precise sequence of experiences that wired the neural architecture, and the unrepeatable combination of all of these things in one body at one moment in time. You cannot build the rarest human possible. Every human already is one. The experiment doesn't break because the math gets too complicated. It breaks because the question assumes rarity is something some people have more of than others. It isn't. It's the one thing distributed in genuinely equal measure across every person who has ever existed.